Hello again, traders, and welcome back to the Hot Stocks Outlook for December 23rd, 2022. Hope you all have had a great week in the financial markets, really gearing up for a nice holiday and a new trading year that we're going to have right around the corner. So it's a really great time to learn about those tools that are available. It can really help you make better trading decisions in the market. So if you haven't already, make sure you click on that link in the description below and learn more of the specifics about these tools. And really a lot to cover today, a lot of charts to get through. And I also encourage you that we're going to start here with shares of Snap-on, which we looked at a couple of weeks ago. And this is a really great time to understand how a lot of these tools like the features like the IntelliScan can help traders identify these important shifts in the market and really seeing as they ripple through more and more areas and sectors of the marketplace. So starting out with shares of Snap-on, what we have here is daily price action, right? So each one of these candles that you're seeing is going to represent a full and complete trading day. And right up against all that price data, you'll see that there's a black line there and also a blue line. So the black line that you're seeing there is a simple moving average. It's a very common technical indicator. In this case, what it does is it looks back over the previous 10 closes. It'll add those all together, divide by 10, and it smooths out the existing price action for us, right? It lets us know where prices have been. But obviously, traders need to be ahead of that next shift in the market. And this is where this is really important, is that what we can do is actually set up tools that'll identify when this blue value or this proprietary predicted moving average crosses above or below that lagging moving average. And for this number to get plotted and calculated for the trader, this is where the technology is coming into play. And so rather than just looking at past prices of Snap-on like traditional technical analysis would do, what this technology is doing is looking at intermarket relationships. So markets that are known to drive and influence the future price of shares of Snap-on. This is where artificial neural networks are really good at this, taking in huge amounts of data, making very accurate predictions with those data sets. But what it's looking at are, again, markets that are going to influence Snap-on. Well, if we think about this, there's these broader macro markets like the S&P 500, the dollar index, that it's very obvious how these things are affecting your overall portfolio. But specifically, how are they affecting it, right? How much is that stock affected by the value of the dollar or the overall S&P, and sharing a lot of those correlations? But there's a lot of important relationships in ETF groups, right? So these sector-wide groups that really group up a lot of stocks and you get a lot of investment coming in and out. Well, that certainly affects the individual stocks. And then you can think about down to commodities, right? If you're going to buy or sell Hess or some of these oil companies and things like this, well, they're highly affected by oil prices. Obviously, some markets affected by gold. And interest rates. And so this is all of this global market relationships down to individual stocks that are sharing relationships with Snap-on. And it's using that information to generate highly accurate future price predictions. And it's those predictions of future price generated via the technology that are used to construct these predictive indicators. So rather than having a tool that just lags and gets, reconstructs past prices, you have a forward-looking predictive tool. And this technology can be applied different ways. So we have what's called the predicted moving average with these crossovers. And that's what we're going to go through and see as you see more and more of these predicted moving averages crossing to the downside in more and more areas of the market. But again, this technology can be tuned to solve different problems for the trader. So rather than looking for future average prices like that predicted average, if you look at the very bottom of the chart here, you see you have this bar that goes from green to red back to green. And this is the predicted neural index. And what it's doing is solving a short-term problem for traders, right? Short-term strength or weakness over the next 48 hours, or you can think of that as a couple of trading candles if you like. But again, it's using that predictive technology, but understanding, okay, well, what's the problem? We're not trying to get a forecast of average prices. We're just trying to get short-term strength or weakness so the trader can be prepared for potentially situations like this, where you see that neural index gets bullish. You have those higher highs over the next 48 hours, again here, but understanding the overall trend, very much still to the downside in that blue line, very much below the black line. Now, as we do each week, we take a look at these predicted highs and lows. And these can be used alongside the software to really have levels where you understand, you can have limit orders, set profit targets, and exploit really those shorter term market participants. And so as we go through these, we can of course see the actual trading day against the prediction, right? So if we look at the right-hand side, you can see our most current prediction here of the high and the low range. But we can see how accurate those are with the actual market data once filled in. And so you see here, this is actually CPI, which we see we had a lot of volatility, but look how accurate these levels are as far as letting you know, hey, if you want to short the market, target these predicted lows. You see we got all that volatility yesterday, but the trend very much to the downside. Don't get distracted by a lot of this short-term strength that you see as we see more and more charts had pivoted bearish, and again, just indicate that what's the appropriate thing to do over the past couple weeks. I actually want to highlight, 2 weeks ago, we looked at Snap-on, and this is so important as it really leads the way with a lot of these things coming through. But what you identify with the help of the IntelliScan is that more and more of these markets are shifting to the downside. So you can set up these predictive crossovers to identify, fresh days where they're first coming through, whatever you want your system to be. Or if you want to find markets that are more heavily in trend, you see this, Apple 20 days in a downtrend here. But this can be configured to help traders see these things as soon as they occur. And that helps traders get that position on and then manage it effectively with the help of these tools. So go ahead and hide that IntelliScan feature. It's really, you can configure it the way you like, but you want to keep it true to these predictive indicators. That's the whole point, is seeing these things as early as possible. So here again with AMD, we'll keep it pretty simple here. But you see where the neural index gets bullish, you get this sideways price action, but that blue line's still below the black line. And what I wanted to highlight is just the dates that these crossovers are coming through. We had that pivot on 12/6. It was really the Monday before that, but then we get all these crossovers really confirming that weakness. And then it's just more and more and more of the market. And we see the market getting more and more bearish. And for shorter or longer term traders, it makes sense to short the market, take profit, and keep plugging away at that. So here again, we see AMD. We can look at the overall move here. But again, just very clearly that all you want to do is short, take profits on short, about 10% move from that initial move lower. But even here, you get this CPI and you get a lot of volatility, but look where the market closes, right in the middle of that range. And then these forecasts get back on track and everything kind of moving along as expected. Royal Caribbean, again, 12/6, cross over the downside. So imagine, this is why 2 weeks ago, bringing in Snap-on very early on with those crossovers to the downside, because you see so much of it happening. And so it gets very hard to say, okay, well, where's the strength, right? Where's the strength in the marketplace if you're getting these very strong, solid crossovers, blue line solidly below the black line there? And again, it's just so similar. You see how the S&P in the broader macro picture is wrapping up a lot of stocks, and you're getting a very similar picture out of most of them. But what you can identify very clearly here is look at the distance between that predicted moving average and the actual moving average. The neural index blipping a couple days to that bullish side as those higher highs are waiting over the subsequent 48 hours. But notice as the neural index gets bearish and that trend resumes, and of course we can use tools like the predicted highs and lows to keep exploiting these situations. So you understand that these are some really fantastic levels to set some shorts and make the most money on the continuation of that move. Rather than chasing things on all these days, just wait to get that level filled. And that's really should be standing out as a more exceptional level, depending on your trading style. If you're a short-term trader, well, great opportunity to set a short. And we saw yesterday the S&P, down to almost 3% at some point. Here's Tesla, and here we have the next day, 12/7, crossover to the downside, neural index very bearish. You see there's only one day out of the last 2 or 3 weeks here that the neural index has actually been bullish. And so as Tesla goes lower and lower and lower, you do not want to be on the wrong side of this thing. And so, there's going to come a time where a lot of these markets shift, and just the opposite of what you started to see a couple of weeks ago, well, you'll start to see a lot of markets shift to the upside. But you do not want to be on the wrong side of these things, right? So a 30% decline, again, one day after a lot of these, broad market crossovers were coming through, Tesla coming through, and let's just move forward and see at least what we're really going to look at is the strongest areas of the market giving way. So here's Johnson Control. Here we have on 12/9, getting this crossover to the downside, again, coming into that CPI report, but very clearly, blue line solidly below the black line, and all hell kind of breaks loose here as you get those gap downs. And you, again, do not want to be on the wrong side of these moves, right? So it's very clear that the trends are to the downside. And also, just understanding that by the time Johnson Controls are getting those crossovers to the downside, it's not as if that nightly process hasn't been sending off some alarm bells that we're seeing some problems broadly in the marketplace. Nucor, this was actually one of the really bullish opportunities earlier on, going back really a couple months now, pretty long time ago. But even there, right? So we see the basic materials, energy stocks did really well. Well, something has shifted here, and you see Nucor 12/9, again, as more and more of those markets shift, blue line crossing below the black line, and we can look at those tools like the predicted highs and lows. And this is where these things can be very effective, where again, this is CPI, you close right in the middle of the range, and then things just keep moving forward here. But you're going from 152 down to 132 in extremely quick order here. We can take a look at the overall move, but the bigger thing being, it's just made sense that you get net short on the portfolio here over the past couple of weeks. There's just almost, anywhere you look, there's some problems out there, and it becomes very easy to identify this when you've got that process set up and you're just identifying these things every night, right? Where are the markets shifting to the downside? Where are there fresh opportunities coming to the upside? And create a much clearer roadmap to then not only identify to get into that market, but then to manage it with the help of these neural index and predicted highs and lows to really get the most of these opportunities. And lastly, I just want to bring in Pfizer here. And I want to bring this in because what I've highlighted with these previous charts is weakness over the past couple of weeks. It's very apparent. But here in Pfizer, you see that this thing was peaking, until very recently, right? This thing is hitting fresh new highs and has more recently come off. But it's another indication of more and more of these markets where that blue line is crossing below the black line. Now, clearly on the way up, well, you do just the opposite, right? You want to be a buyer taking profits on long positions. And that, leads you, if we just look at crossover to crossover, you got about a 20% rally there over the past 46 trading days. And with the help of those predicted highs and lows, well, maybe you can, maybe build an even larger position, get a little bit more out of that as you see these levels do a really good job when you have that clear directional bias. But you got to recognize that shift and say, okay, well, now we know that a lot of this market is in a bearish shape. Now Pfizer, it took a little bit longer here, but this is what happens. If you set up that IntelliScan process and you're running these scans every night and seeing how and where the markets are shifting, it just makes it a much easier roadmap to recognize the big picture and really shift that portfolio at the right time to make sure that you're not really getting caught in things. And, even to the extent of Pfizer here, you recognize that there's a lot of broad-based market weakness. Even while Pfizer's moving up and rallying, that's great, but you identify that something's a little off here, and when those crossovers move to the downside, you really should take your profits, move on, and look for other areas that look sort of like Pfizer on the upside. Whenever that'll happen, we'll have to wait and see. So we'll go ahead and leave it there for today. Once again, this has been our Hot Stocks Outlook for December 23rd, 2022. Thank you all for watching. Best of luck, and bye for now.